The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Weekly Forecast.
Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for March 7th through the 11th, 2022. Okay, we'll start off with the pound dollar. This is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this horizontal trend line right here just became legitimate, with its 3 touches at 1, 2, and 3 right here, and since price has a tendency to want to test strong levels, in the long term I am long biased. Right back up to this horizontal trend line. I'm over on the weekly chart since there was a strong long trade that formed and a weak short trade that formed. In the short term I am also long biased. Right back up to this pivot high right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is the weekly chart. Let me run you by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of weeks. So there was a strong short trade that formed right here, then a weak long trade formed right here. So at this point the bias was short, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high, and that main target was hit right here. And then 2 weeks later we actually had a long trade that was stronger than this previous short trade. And so at this point the bias became long, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And so we got this move all the way up to these levels right here, just short of that main target. And then we got another weak short trade that formed right here. So the bias remained long. However, the target was changed to this pivot high right here. So I was waiting for a pullback to these 13300 levels for a long entry. However, as price reached these levels right here, there was actually confirmation on the lower time frames of strong short strength. And so at this point, although price did reach that entry level, I'm waiting for confirmation of long strength to kick back in order for me to take this long entry. Okay, so let me just show you what I'm looking for in terms of that long confirmation. Let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, that 1 hour short-term confirmation of strong short strength happened right here with this fake double top that formed. However, the target height level being reached before the second top stop loss level, which indicates short-term strong short strength. So we got this tremendous fall all the way down to these levels, to the entry levels of that 1.3300 levels. However, like I was mentioning, I needed confirmation of long strength to kick back in that can override the short strength formed from this 1 hour double top. And at this point, I'm still not getting any confirmation of short-term long strength. Okay, so at this point, a possible setup that may form to confirm long strength can be a 1 hour fake double bottom that forms, which typically shows normal short strength. However, if this target height level can be reached before the second bottom stop loss level, that'll show that even stronger long strength was able to override it, confirming short-term long strength and thus confirming the overriding of the short strength created by this 1 hour fake double top. Okay, but there are many variations of this short-term long strength, so I'll keep you guys updated on the midweek analysis. Okay, moreover, let me just show you why this 1 hour fake double top did possibly change the bias into short and thus may not get this long confirmation. Let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, try drawing this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now when that weekly bias formed with the long trade that formed right here, price reached this downward trend line that just became legitimate with its 3 touches. Now this is similar to what happened on the dollar-yen pair in terms of a bias being reversed due to a target reached. So as price ranged about for the last month, price actually respected that monthly downward trend line that just became legitimate at the end of this month, which is a common setup for a bias change through a target reached. And moreover, the 1 hour chart was confirming short-term strong short strength. Okay, so that's the reason for this possible bias change into short on the weekly chart. However, that is not confirmed. So before we hit that weekly stop loss level at this pivot low right here, If we could get some confirmation of strong long strength that can override that short strength, this long bias is still intact. Okay, and again, I'll keep you guys updated on the midweek analysis. Okay, let's go on to the Euro-Yen pair. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of weekly biases and lower confirmations, please watch my price action trading course, where that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can understand how to trade price action. Okay, this is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since the last long trade that formed was right here, and last year at this point, it was compact short price action that formed, which shows strong short strength. In the long term, I'm short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. And moreover, last week on the short term, I was short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here, and that target was hit this week. In the medium term, I am neutral biased. Okay, let's talk entries. So again, this weekly bias is short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. So at the end of last year, there was a nice pullback for a short entry with the stop loss at this pivot high right here. And as price came down to these levels, price was having a hard time getting through some monthly gap levels right here. And so price pulled right back up to the prior levels. However, recall there was no short-term long strength in this long move, although it was going up. And so for the past couple of weeks, I've been taking multiple short entries with the stop loss again at this pivot high right here and its main target being right down here. Alright, so let me just update you on the situation of this short entry. Let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so that last short entry I took was at 131.50 with the stop loss at 133.67. And as price fell all the way down to these levels, if you recall, there were no signs of strong long strength. And so I was keeping the full short position in. And then this week, price fell all the way down to these levels. However, recall, if there is any signs of short-term long strength kicking back in, I will be taking out portions of this short entry. And moreover, if price does pull back again right up to these 1.30 levels, I will be willing to take further short entries, but that weekly bias is still short in my opinion. However, there is a possibility that price may not pull back to these levels again at this point. So let me just show you what that's about. Let's go back to the weekly chart. Okay, so on this weekly chart, on the midweek analysis, I was explaining this, but the last long entry point that formed was right here with the stop loss at this pivot low right here. And so one way that you could get a glimpse of whether or not you'll get a pullback is if price stops out the last entry point on the same time frame, and that level was hit this week, lessening the possibility of a further pullback to the 131 levels. However, this is a view based on past price, and as you guys know, in terms of price action, current price is much more important in terms of the analysis process. So if we still can get a lower time frame strong long strength in future price action, there is still that possibility of a pullback to the 131 levels for further short entries. Okay, so I'll keep you guys updated in terms of further short entries for this short setup in future forecasts. Okay, so let's go on to the dollar-yen pair. Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since price broke out of this monthly doji a couple months back at this level right here, and since this breakout is rather significant, in the long term I'm long biased, right back up to this monthly gap level right here. And moreover, since there are no weekly or daily biases that are forming at the moment and price is ranging, in the short term I am neutral biased. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the setup I've been looking at for the past couple of weeks. So at the end of last year, at this point right here, there was a strong short trade that formed. And then several weeks later, there was a week long trade that formed. And so at this point, the bias was short. Or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. However, as price ranged about for the next couple of months, price made a monthly trend line that runs right through these levels that became a target for this daily short bias, and thus reverted the bias into long. Or in other words, price was now likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low, and that main target was hit right here. And furthermore, we got extension moves all the way up to these levels where there was actually another strong short trade that formed, and right after there was a week long trade that formed. However, if you recall, there was another bias change through a target reached where price hit a monthly gap level that runs right through these levels, changing the bias into long, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And again, that was confirmed through the lower time frames also. And now at the current moment in these areas right here, there are no weekly or daily biases that are forming at the moment, and so price is pretty much ranging. So what I'll be looking for in the coming weeks is for either a weekly or daily bias to form. So in other words, I'll be waiting for a short trade to form and a long trade to form. Now measure the strength of each, and if this short trade is stronger than this hypothetical long trade, the bias will be short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. And the same rules apply if the strength is reversed. So if this long trade is stronger than this short trade, then the bias will be long. Okay, but moreover, there's a couple of things that's happening in current price that might be of help to you. So let me show you those. Let's go over to the daily chart. Okay, so on this daily chart, there is a price pattern that's forming at this area right here. Now this HNS, in my opinion, is not up to par aesthetically, so it cannot be used to gauge any future long or short strength. Now the reason being is because it's within a range. So in other words, there's no prior direction of a trend, which is necessary for a reversal pattern to be fake or legitimate. Okay, so in my opinion, this price pattern is not aesthetically up to par, thus does not present any future indication of long or short strength. Okay, and lastly, let me just show you the key levels I'll be looking at in the coming weeks. Let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, the key level that price is respecting at this point is from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now this provides short-term short strength, and moreover, this medium gap level that runs right through this level right here, which will most probably provide considerable short strength. However, the key level I'm looking at in terms of long strength is this horizontal trend line right here that I showed you earlier, which is on the upper side of this monthly huge doji at this level right here. Now again, this breakout at this level is rather significant, so if price does fall right back down to these levels, that is a level I'll be watching keenly to see what happens to future price. Okay, alright, so that's it for the weekly forecast. I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.